You've never done anything for us." Megan's words hung in the kitchen air like shards of glass. I felt each syllable cut my skin. 65 years on my back, 3 children raised alone after Richard passed. And this is what I heard. The coffee overflowed, the smell of burnt grounds filling the room, but I barely noticed. My gaze locked on hers, searching for a flicker of remorse. There was none. "How can you say that, Megan?" I asked, my voice flat, almost distant. "It's the truth, Mom." Megan's arms tightened across her chest, her face a mask of stone. "Aunt Brenda always came through for her kids. Uncle Frank covered college for all our cousins. But you, always excuses. Always, I can't." I took a deep breath. Our fight, I reminded myself, revolved around Caleb's 10th birthday, marked starkly on the kitchen calendar. I'd offered a simple gift, something within my retirement budget. Megan, on the other hand, insisted on a high-priced gaming system. "You think a kid needs a fancy gift to be happy?" I asked, the flame on the stove clicking off. "That's not the point, Mom." Her hand hit the table with a sharp crack. "It's about you never pushing yourself, never making sacrifices." That word, sacrifices, struck me like a physical blow. A lifetime of memories came roaring back, selling my wedding jewelry to cover her school field trip. The night shifts cleaning offices when Richard was laid off, just so you children never felt the pinch. The fevered nights with Megan at 8, pneumonia burning through her as I sat, compress after cold compress, by her bedside. "Are you absolutely certain about that, Megan?" I asked, my hand already pulling open the hutch drawer. "Certain I never did anything for you." From it, I pulled a faded blue folder. Inside, meticulously kept were the receipts. Every single one. For every tuition payment, every medical bill, every extra class. And the bank letters detailing the loans I'd taken out to help Megan and Brian open their store. "What is all this?" Megan asked, her voice faltering now. "These are the sacrifices you claim I never made." I laid each document on the table, one by one, including the deed to this very house, mortgaged 3 years ago to pay off Brian's debts. A secret I swore I'd take to my grave, never to throw in their faces. I never wanted any of you to know. You don't help people to get gratitude, but I won't stand for ingratitude either. Her face transformed. Shock, then raw shame. She started to speak, but I held up a hand. "I'm not finished. Next week, this house goes on the market." You must be wondering how it came to this. How a mother and daughter could drift so far that such venomous words could be spoken. To understand, we need to go back. It began 6 months ago. My son-in-law Brian lost his job. The construction company, through no fault of his own, shuttered multiple branches. The timing was abysmal. They'd just finished an expensive home renovation, and Caleb needed extensive orthodontic work. Megan, my middle child, had always been the most ambitious. Even as a little girl, she craved what her friends possessed. Jason, my eldest, was content, a tenured university professor. Amanda, the youngest, followed Richard into a military career, stoic and self-sufficient. But Megan, she always yearned for more. When Brian's job evaporated, Megan appeared at my door one Tuesday. I remember because my hands were thick with flour from bread making. "Mom, I need to ask a favor," she said, settling at the kitchen table as I shaped the last loaf. "Of course, dear. What is it?" "Brian's out of work and the bills are drowning us. We need a loan." I stopped mid-knead, wiping flour onto my apron. "How much?" The figure she named made my stomach plummet. Nearly half my life savings. Megan, I don't know if I can spare that much. There are my medications, the house bills. Her face snapped shut. Fine, Mum. Forget I asked. Brian's mother will help. Hold on. I didn't say no. Just that I need to see what I can manage without jeopardizing my own future. It's always this way, she mumbled. Always counting pennies, always hedging. Brian's mother wouldn't hesitate. The word stung. I swallowed the bitterness. I'll see. In the end, I pulled the money from my emergency medical savings. Handed it to her in a plain envelope, no ceremony. Megan offered a quick thank you, but her eyes held a strange glint. As if it were an entitlement, not a sacrifice. The weeks that followed tightened. Brian remained unemployed. Megan piled on extra hours at the clothing store. Our infrequent calls were strained, her voice sharp with stress. It was then I noticed the shift in Caleb. My sweet grandson, always so affectionate, now barely met my gaze when he visited. One afternoon, fixing him a snack, I overheard his phone conversation. Can't go. Grandma's too cheap. Never gives me any money. I froze, the butter knife hanging in the air. Those words, from a 10-year-old, were plucked straight from home. 3 weeks ago for his birthday, I'd chosen a science kit. The Clark swore it was both educational and fun. 2 months I'd saved for it. When Caleb tore open the wrapping, I saw the flicker of disappointment. Cool, Grandma, he mumbled, pushing it aside to rip open other gifts. Later, I overheard Megan to Brian. She could have put in more effort. She knew he wanted that video game. Something snapped inside me. That comment was the final fracture after months of petty ingratitude, veiled disapproval, and endless, unfair comparisons. Which led us to that morning in the kitchen. Coffee burning, her words suspended in the bitter air. You've never done anything for us. What? But Mom? Megan stammered, reeling from the announcement. You can't do that. I can, and I am, I stated, sliding the documents back into the folder. I'll find a smaller apartment. The remaining money? Divided. Half for my comfortable retirement, half for a savings account for Caleb. When he's old enough, I'll explain it came from his grandmother, who apparently never did anything for anyone. Megan's eyes welled. She reached for me, but I stepped back. This isn't about hurting you. It's about me, at 65, finally understanding I deserve respect. And you? You need to learn the value of things. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. I'm just so stressed with Brian being out of work, with all the bills. I understand stress, dear. I raised 3 children alone after your father, Richard, died. You think I don't know pressure? But never, not even when we had nothing, did I let you disrespect my own parents, or anyone older. She wiped tears with the back of her hand, looking suddenly so small, so young, like the little girl who'd run to my arms after a scraped knee. What do you want from me? I want you to go home and think about everything you said, everything I did. When you're ready for an adult, respectful conversation, you can call. After Megan left, I sank into a kitchen chair, tears finally coming. Not of sadness, but immense relief. As if a decade-long wait, the burden of endless yielding, constant understanding, and unconditional forgiveness without reciprocity, had at last been shed. That night I called a real estate agent. The next morning, a realtor walked my property. It was a sound property, nestled in a neighborhood that had steadily climbed in value. The appraisal shocked me. More than enough to buy a comfortable apartment and still have a substantial sum remaining. 3 days later, when the "For Sale" sign staked its claim in the yard, my phone became a relentless buzz. Megan, then Brian, then Jason and Amanda, all demanding to know if I'd gone mad, if this was some impulsive whim. "It's not impulse," I explained to Jason, always the most measured of my children. "It's a decision I've avoided for too long. This house is too large for one person, and its upkeep devours my retirement." "But Mom, if it's money we can help," he offered, a note of desperation in his voice. "It's never been just money, son. It's about respect, about appreciation, about boundaries that should have been etched in stone years ago." The silence on the line spoke volumes. He understood, even if he didn't fully approve. Amanda was more blunt. "It's Megan, isn't it?" "What's she done now?" I sighed. Those two had always been at odds. "I don't want you involved. This is between me and your sister." "She's always been spoiled, Mom. Always believed the world spun just for her. Amanda, please, don't inflame this." The next week, 3 offers landed. I accepted the second, not the highest, but the one offering 2 more weeks before vacating. Enough time to sort my things and find a new place. That's when Megan reappeared. She looked diminished, deep circles under her eyes, her hair lacking its usual luster. She carried a box of chocolates, my favorites. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I opened the door wide. She stepped in, her gaze sweeping over the stacked boxes in the living room. "So you really are selling?" "I am. The offer's accepted." She nodded, chewing on her lip. "Mom, I came to apologize. Truly, what I said. It was cruel. Unfair." "Yes, it was. I've been so consumed by our problems, I forgot everything you've always done for us. Brian finally found a new job, and it just hit me how ungrateful I've been." I gestured to the sofa. We sat. "Megan, it's not just that comment. It's a pattern, years in the making. You expect me to be ever available, to always help, to always give in? And when I do, it's treated as an obligation, nothing more." She dropped her gaze. "I know. Brian said the same thing. Said I treat you like a bank, not my mother." That surprised me. Brian, usually so quiet, so conciliatory. "He's right," I replied, "and it needs to change." "It will, Mom, I promise. But please don't sell the house because of me. This house, it holds so many memories." "I'm not selling just because of you. I'm selling because it's what's best for me now. Because I want to live my golden years in peace, without the constant worry of high bills, or these damn stairs getting harder to climb." She nodded slowly, the realization dawning. My decision transcended our argument. "Can I at least help you pick out the new apartment?" I offered a faint smile. "You can. In fact, I've already shortlisted a few for tomorrow." Later that night, with Megan gone, I settled onto the back porch, a cup of tea warming my hands. The garden I'd cultivated for decades was a riot of color, the roses particularly vibrant this year. I'd missed their beauty, but not the chronic ache in my back from tending the beds. As dusk deepened, I realized I stood on the precipice of a new life, a phase where my needs would finally take precedence, where boundaries, even with my beloved children, would be firm. The phone chimed, startling me. It was Caleb. "Grandma," his voice chirped. "Mom said you're moving to an apartment. Will it have a pool? Can I sleep over sometimes?" A warmth bloomed in my chest. "We'll look for one with a pool, yes. And of course you can sleep over, my love. I'll dedicate a room just for you." "Cool. And Grandma?" "I'm sorry, I didn't like the present. I put the science kit together yesterday and it's super awesome. I made a real exploding volcano. Those simple words delivered with breathless, childlike enthusiasm were worth more than any formal apology. Children are mirrors. They reflect what they see and hear. If Caleb was changing, it meant something else. Something vital was shifting at home. I'm so glad you liked it, sweetie. Next time we can build it together. Deal! Bye, Grandma. Love you. Love you too, my dear. I hung up, a genuine smile gracing my lips. Maybe, just maybe, this drastic decision was sending ripples of change far beyond my own life. Perhaps Megan was finally internalizing the lesson I'd tried to impart her entire life. That love isn't merely material handouts, but profound respect, thoughtful consideration, and deep gratitude. Tomorrow we'd tour apartments, a new chapter with new rules. What I couldn't know was that the true storm hadn't even begun. That the house sale would unleash revelations that would reshape my family forever. Decades-old secrets, poised to erupt, and I was utterly unprepared for the fallout. But what happened next was even worse. 3 days after Caleb's call, Jason's voice hit me. Different, tense, almost accusatory. Mom, we need to talk, in person. Can I come over tonight? Something in his tone knotted my stomach. Of course, son. Is everything all right? I'd rather discuss it face to face. He hung up. I spent the day with a cold dread coiling in my gut. Jason was the most level-headed of my children, always the calm mediator. To hear him so unhinged was alarming. At 7, the doorbell chimed. I opened it to find not just Jason, but Amanda and Megan. All three stood on the porch, faces grim. An intervention. Come in, I said, trying to mask my apprehension. They settled into the living room, surrounded by packed boxes. Jason clutched a yellow folder I didn't recognize. Mom, he began, we found this in Dad's old office. He opened the folder, producing old, yellowed documents. I recognized Richard's distinct handwriting instantly. Where did you find these? I managed, my voice suddenly thin. In the false bottom of his desk. Amanda was helping clear out the storage unit where we kept his old furniture, and the drawer gave way. My hand trembled as I took the papers. Contracts, bank statements, and a letter addressed to all three of them. You read it? I asked, though I already knew. We did, Amanda replied, her military precision softened by a raw edge of emotion. Why didn't you ever tell us, Mom? I closed my eyes, 30 years of carefully guarded silence crashing down on me. Because your father made me promise. My mind reeled back to 1989. Richard, freshly diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor. Doctors gave him 6 months, tops. Our children were so young. Jason, 19, just starting college. Megan, 16, rebellious and full of dreams. Amanda, a mere 12, still a child. One night, after the kids were asleep, Richard summoned me to his study. His face, already etched with the disease's grim progress, thinner, eyes sunken, still held the same unwavering determination that had first captivated me. Helena, he said, closing the door softly, we need to talk about the future. I sat opposite him, clutching his hands. They were cold. I don't want the kids to know how desperate our finances are, he continued, especially with the treatments ahead. Richard, they need to understand our reality. He shook his head, stubborn as the day I met him. Number Jason starting college. Megan dreams of that fashion design program. Amanda needs stability. I won't have them abandon their dreams because of me. But how will we pay? Your insurance barely covers half the treatments, and my teacher's salary barely keeps us afloat." It was then he revealed his plan. He'd struck a deal with his older brother Frank. He'd sell his share of their small company for a pittance, on the condition that Frank would guarantee our children's futures, Jason's college tuition, Megan's fashion design program in New York, and a portion set aside for Amanda. "You can't do that," I argued, my voice tight. "That company is your legacy." "My legacy is our children, Helena, and I want them to have every opportunity." The agreement was shrouded in secrecy. Richard made me promise, absolute promise, never to tell the children. They were to believe their uncle's help sprang from pure generosity, not a contractual bond. "If they know," he'd pleaded, "they'll carry the guilt. They'll think I sacrificed my dream for them." "But you are sacrificing." He smiled, that familiar light in his eyes, even shadowed by illness. "It's not a sacrifice when it's born of love." 3 months later, Richard was gone, faster than any doctor predicted. He didn't even live to see Jason finish his first semester of college. I honored my promise. When Frank began paying Jason's college tuition, I let them believe it was his boundless kindness. When he financed Megan's fashion design program in New York, I thanked him as if it were a benevolent favor, not a binding obligation. When he smoothed Amanda's path into the military academy with costly prep courses, I simply smiled my gratitude. And all the while, I worked myself raw. Double shifts, a second job cleaning offices. I sold off jewelry, furniture, hoarded every single penny. Anything to keep this home so they would always have a place to come back to. Frank honored his end of the bargain for years, until Amanda was in her second year at the academy, and he came to me. His company was faltering, battered by the economic downturn. He couldn't sustain the help. "I understand, Frank," I'd said, masking the fresh stab of panic. "You've already done more than you ever had to." That night, I made a desperate decision. I mortgaged this house, the only real asset I had left, to ensure Amanda finished her studies. For years after, once all three were launched, I worked silently, chipping away at that monstrous debt. I cleared it, finally, 5 years ago. I never told them a word. Let them believe Uncle Frank was their great benefactor, that I'd merely handled the basic stuff, love, a roof, food, that I'd never really sacrificed, just as Megan had so cruelly thrown in my face. "Why, Mom?" Megan's voice, raw and broken, pulled me back. Tears tracked paths down her cheeks. "Why did you let us believe Uncle Frank did everything, when it was you and Dad who gave everything?" I wiped my own tears. "Because your father wanted it that way. He didn't want you to bear the burden of knowing he surrendered his dream for yours." "But you let us believe you didn't care enough," Amanda said, her voice thick with unshed tears. "That only Uncle Frank truly helped us." "That never bothered me," I lied. "What mattered was that you had opportunities." Jason, ever the most astute, shook his head. "It did bother you, Mom, so much so that you kept all these receipts." He gestured to the blue folder I'd shown Megan days earlier. "You kept proof of every single penny you spent on us, as if one day you'd need to defend your love." I said nothing. He was right. A part of me had always known this day would arrive. The day I'd be forced to prove my love, to quantify my sacrifices. "And when Uncle Frank stopped helping?" Amanda asked, her voice cracking. "The documents show my academy tuition kept getting paid." "I mortgaged the house," I confessed, the words a weary exhale. Worked for years to pay off that debt. The silence that descended was deafening. Megan buried her face in her hands, racked with sobs. Amanda, typically an unshakable pillar, had tears brimming in her eyes. Jason looked utterly devastated. "That's why you're selling the house now," he concluded, his voice barely a whisper. "It's not just because of the fight with Megan. This house, it embodies every sacrifice you made, every one that was never seen, never acknowledged." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Megan rose, moving to kneel before my chair. "Mom, I'm so profoundly sorry. I didn't know. I never could have imagined." I touched her face, brushing away her tears. "There was no way you could know, sweetie. I kept it from you." "But I should have noticed. I should have seen the signs." Amanda joined us, sinking onto the sofa beside me. "We all should have. We were too engrossed in our own lives to ever question how you did it all, on your own." Jason remained seated, his gaze still fixed on the documents. "There's something else here, Mom. A letter from Dad. For all three of us. Did you know?" I shook my head. No. He must have written it in his final days. Jason opened the yellowed envelope and began to read aloud. "My dear children, if you're reading this, it means your mother has finally unveiled the truth about our arrangement with your Uncle Frank. Or, more likely, knowing her stubbornness in keeping a promise, you've unearthed it yourselves. I want you to know that the decision to sell my part of the company was entirely mine. Your mother tried to dissuade me, tried to convince me to be honest about our financial straits. But I insisted. I don't regret it. Every opportunity you seized was worth it. Every dream you realized justified my choice. But there's something vital you must understand. While Uncle Frank merely fulfilled a business agreement, your mother, she did so much more. She carried the silent burden of our secret. She worked herself to the bone to keep this home. She sacrificed her own dreams so you could chase yours. If there's anyone to whom you owe eternal gratitude, it's not me, who made an easy choice, knowing I wouldn't be here to face the fallout. It's her. She who stayed. She who fought. She who never gave up. I love you more than words can express. Take care of your mother as she took care of you. With all my love, Dad." When Jason finished reading, we were all openly weeping. 30 years of secrets, of quiet misunderstandings, of unspoken resentments. They broke open like a dam. The flood was overwhelming. "He knew," I whispered. "Richard knew you'd find out one day. And he wanted us to know the truth about you," Amanda added, her grip on my hand fiercely tight. We stayed that way for a long time, the four of us, tangled in a raw, awkward embrace, weeping for everything lost and everything found that night. The next morning, I woke to the scent of fresh coffee, comforting and unfamiliar. I descended the stairs, surprised to find all three of my children in the kitchen. Megan flipping pancakes, Amanda slicing fruit, Jason pouring the coffee. "Good morning," I said, still disoriented. "You all slept here?" "On the living room floor," Jason replied, a soft smile. "Just like the old days, when thunderstorms rolled in and we'd build blanket forts. We had a family meeting after you went to bed," Amanda explained, pulling out a chair for me. "And we made some decisions." I sat, a fresh wave of apprehension washing over me. What kind of decisions? Megan placed a steaming plate of pancakes before me. "First, you're not selling this house." "Megan, we've been over this. My decision is final." "Let her finish, Mom," Jason interjected, pouring coffee for everyone. You're not selling the house, Megan continued, her gaze steady. Because we're buying it from you. I looked at all three of them, stunned. What? Here's the plan, Amanda explained, all military precision. You'll sell us the house at fair market value. With that money, you'll purchase your new apartment and keep the rest for your retirement. The three of us will then split ownership equally. But you don't have that kind of money, I countered. Yes, we do, Jason replied, a quiet confidence in his voice. Amanda has substantial savings from her time in the service. I have a stable salary as a university professor. And Megan and Brian just received an incredible offer to expand their shop into a chain. Plus, Megan added, we're renovating the upstairs into a complete apartment for you. Just in case you ever want to move back. Or for longer stays. I was speechless. It was a solution I hadn't even considered. We don't want you to feel pressured, Amanda said softly. If you truly wish to sell and move on, we'll respect that. But we felt compelled to offer this alternative. Why? I asked, the question laced with a lifetime of unasked inquiries, still processing the sheer magnitude of their offer. Why would you do this? Because this house isn't just property, Jason replied, his voice firm. It's Dad's legacy. It's where we grew up. It's the living testament to everything you sacrificed for us. And because we want to do for you what you always did for us, Megan finished, taking my hand. To care, to protect, to ensure your security. I looked at my three children, adults now, truly, responsible, understanding. A surge of pride, so immense it threatened to crack my chest, washed over me. I need time to think, I finally managed. It's a monumental decision. Of course, Mom, Amanda agreed. No rush at all. That afternoon, while my children bustled around organizing a family dinner, I drove to the cemetery to visit Richard. It had been months. I sat beside his simple headstone, pouring out everything. The bitter fight with Megan, the shocking discovery of the documents, the letter he'd left, the children's astonishing proposal. They're exactly who you wanted them to be, Richard, I said, straightening the fresh flowers I'd brought. It took them a lifetime, it seems, but they finally understand what truly matters. The value of family. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the surrounding trees. I like to imagine it was Richard, responding in his own quiet way. I think I'll accept their offer, I continued. Not for the financial security, but because it's a way to finally close this chapter. To transform decades of silent sacrifice into an open, acknowledged legacy. When I returned home, my decision was solid. I found the entire family in the backyard. My children, Brian, Jessica, and all my grandchildren. Caleb, a whirlwind of energy, chased his cousins, their laughter bright and unrestrained. Megan approached, her eyes anxious. So, Mom, have you decided? I've decided, I replied, my gaze sweeping over them all. I'm accepting your proposal with one condition. What is it? Jason asked, leaning forward. That this house never be just an investment. That it always remain a home, a gathering place where my grandchildren can grow up knowing their history, our history. That's not a condition, Mom, Amanda smiled. That's a promise. That night, on the porch, my tea steaming in the cool air, I watched them through the living room window. My family, talking, laughing, planning for a future I'd helped build with every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every agonizing choice. Caleb came to sit beside me, clutching the science kit. Grandma, look what I made today." He held up a small experiment with magnets and paper clips. "That's incredible, sweetie. You really have a knack for science, don't you?" He nodded, eyes wide with conviction. "I want to be a scientist when I grow up, or an astronaut, or both." "You can be anything you want," I replied, stroking his soft hair. "Your mom, your dad, me, we'll all be there to support your dreams." "I know, Grandma." He grinned, revealing the charming gap where his baby teeth were beginning to fall out. "Mom told me you and Grandpa did so much so she could study fashion. Said you're the real heroes of our family." I felt my eyes well up. "Your mom said that?" "She did, and that now it's her turn to do the same for me." He squeezed me in a tight, small hug. "Thank you, Grandma, for taking care of my mom so she could take care of me." In that moment, the circle completed itself. Yesterday's silent sacrifices had blossomed into today's profound lessons. Megan, at last, grasped the true value of what we had done for her, ready now to carry that legacy forward. 3 months later, I moved into a small, sun-drenched apartment, a mere 10 minutes from the old house. The upstairs of the house was, as promised, beautifully renovated into my personal sanctuary for whenever I wished to be closer to the family. On a Sunday afternoon, I hosted everyone for a pot roast dinner in my new home. As we finished dessert, Megan cleared her throat, asking for attention. "Mom, we have a present for you." She handed me a crisp envelope. Inside, a certificate of enrollment for a painting class, something I'd always longed to do but never found the time or money for. "Now it's your turn," Megan said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your turn to pursue your dreams, to do what you love. We'll take care of you, just as you cared for us." I looked at my children, at my grandchildren, at the family I'd forged through love and sacrifice, and I knew with absolute certainty that every difficult moment, every sleepless night, every agonizing choice, it had all been worth it. "Thank you," I said, embracing each of them, "for understanding, at long last, that true love isn't found in expensive gifts or grand declarations. It resides in the quiet daily sacrifices, the silent choices, the courage to place others before yourself." That night, after everyone had departed, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment. The starry sky seemed brighter, the air lighter, carrying a whisper of possibility. I picked up the brush and canvas Amanda had given me with the course enrollment and painted my first picture in decades. It was a portrait of our old house, everyone gathered in the sun-dappled yard. In the corner, almost imperceptible to any but the most careful eye, I painted Richard's silhouette, watching his family with quiet pride. Because some presences never truly leave. Some loves transcend time, distance, even death. And some sacrifices, however quiet, inevitably find their voice. And me? I found mine. In Megan's regretful words. In Amanda's strong hug. In Jason's understanding gaze. And, most of all, in Caleb's innocent wisdom, who understood what many adults take a lifetime to learn. That true love isn't just about what we say, but what we do. It's not about what we give, but what we're willing to give up. And in the end, it's not the grand gestures that define a life, but the cumulative sum of small, quiet acts of love. Acts that, like seeds planted in silence, will one day blossom into a garden of profound gratitude and understanding.